Jace wiped the sweat off his forehead as he stared at the teleportation chamber. It wasn't that he minded hard work. He liked machines and the way they hummed when they worked perfectly. But today felt different. The colony on Ardent 5 was quiet, almost too quiet, except for the soft buzzing of the teleportation units. He checked the readouts again. The energy levels were stable, but something didn't feel right. He was waiting for the young Lyrian girl, Lyra. The Lyrians were small, delicate-looking aliens with shimmering blue skin and wide, luminous eyes. Lyra, however, had a spark in her that no one else seemed to have. She was new to teleportation, and her ability was unpredictable. She could appear anywhere in a split second, but controlling it was another story. Jace had been warned to expect the unexpected. He barely had time to think before there was a sudden flash of light and Lyra appeared, right on top of him. Oof, Jace stumbled backward, nearly falling over. Lyra, watch where you, he stopped mid-sentence, realizing she was laughing, a high musical sound that echoed across the chamber. Lyra blinked at him, her eyes sparkling. I'm sorry, Jace, I didn't mean to land on you again. Again? Jace rubbed his shoulder. He had a long list of accidents since she arrived at the colony, but this was becoming a running joke, or perhaps a nightmare. Every time she teleported, she seemed drawn to him, sometimes landing on his desk, sometimes on the floor beside him, and more than once right on him. It's not my fault, Lyra said, pouting slightly. Teleportation is tricky. I just end up where I want to be or where my mind takes me, Jace sighed. Your mind seems to take you straight to me. Lyra giggled again, brushing a strand of her glowing blue hair behind her ear. Maybe you just have good energy. Jace rolled his eyes but couldn't suppress a small smile. Despite the chaos she brought, there was something about Lyra that made him want to help her succeed. She was brilliant in her own way, curious and endlessly enthusiastic. If she could control her powers, she could be a huge asset to the colony. The colony itself was a marvel of human ingenuity. Built on the surface of Ardent 5, a planet with jagged crystal mountains and swirling violet skies, it was home to humans and a few allied alien species. Teleportation technology had been a risky experiment, tested only on a small number of volunteers. Lyra, as a Lyrian, had volunteered, or perhaps been recruited, because her species naturally had the ability to move through space in bursts. Humans, however, could only dream of such freedom. Jace adjusted a few dials on the teleportation chamber. The system monitored energy fluctuations, predicting where Lyra might appear and creating a temporary buffer to protect anyone nearby. It worked most of the time, but with her abilities there were no guarantees. Okay, Jace said, taking a deep breath. We'll try again. Remember, focus on the target. Think about the floor marker in front of you. Lyra nodded earnestly. I'll try. I want to get it right. The chamber hummed as she concentrated. There was a faint shimmer in the air, and a moment later she was gone. Jace held his breath, watching the monitors. Then, with a sudden pop, Lyra reappeared, not in the center of the chamber, not on the floor marker, but sitting on top of his desk, staring at him with wide eyes. Lyra, Jace groaned. I said focus, not teleport on top of me. Are you trying to break the desk? I didn't mean to, she protested. It's like the space pulls me. Jace pinched the bridge of his nose. Space doesn't pull anyone, Lyra. Your mind is making you appear where it wants. She tilted her head. Then I guess my mind wants to be with you. Jace blinked. That had been weirdly sweet. He cleared his throat. Focus. Not on me on the marker. We'll do this again. They tried over and over. Each time, Lyra would appear somewhere in the chamber, or more often than not, directly on him. It wasn't dangerous. The colony was well prepared for small accidents, but it was frustrating, exhausting, and increasingly humorous. By mid-afternoon, Jace was covered in minor bumps, scratches, and a little bit of sweat, but he was determined. Okay, Lyra. Let's try a different approach. Think of the floor marker and imagine yourself landing there safely. Lyra nodded, closing her eyes. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of machinery, and then in a flash of blue light she appeared perched on his shoulder. Jace froze. "Perched shoulder," Lyra laughed, dangling lightly as if she weighed nothing. "See, I'm safe, and you're safe." Jace couldn't help but laugh too, though his laughter was mixed with a groan. "This is ridiculous. You're going to give me a permanent kink in my neck." Despite the chaos, Jace felt a growing respect for her abilities. Lyra wasn't just randomly teleporting. She was learning, adjusting, experimenting. She had potential if he could just help her control it. Later, when the trial was paused for a system check, the colony went silent. A sudden alert blinked on the main console, a minor energy surge in one of the outer sectors. Jace frowned. "Lyra, did you teleport outside?" Lyra shook her head. "I don't think so. I was right here." Jace's eyes widened. The monitors confirmed it. A small power surge had originated in one of the outer energy conduits. It wasn't dangerous yet, but it could cause serious problems if left unchecked. He grabbed his tablet and ran to the conduit room, Lyra following, still occasionally phasing in and out of space, appearing a few inches above the floor or right beside him. Her presence was unpredictable, but it was starting to become second nature for Jace to anticipate where she might appear. When they reached the conduit room, the source of the surge was obvious. A misaligned energy pulse had begun to ripple through the colony's systems. Jace's heart sank. If it spread, it could knock out life support in several sectors. "Lyra," he said urgently, "we need to fix this. Can you teleport to the pulse origin and stabilize it?" She nodded, determined. "I can try," Jace hesitated. "Be careful, focus." "Don't just land on me, okay?" Lyra gave a mischievous grin. "No promises." With a bright flash, she disappeared. Jace watched the monitors nervously. The power surge flickered, then stabilized. Lyra reappeared, this time thankfully not on top of him but hovering above the control panel, her hands glowing with a soft blue light. "You did it!" Jace exclaimed. Relief flooded him. "You actually did it!" Lyra beamed, landing gracefully on the floor. "I told you." "I'm learning." Jace shook his head, smiling. "You are something else." As they walked back to the teleportation chamber, the sun dipped below Ardent Five's violet horizon, casting long shadows across the crystalline mountains. Jace felt a strange sense of excitement. Working with Lyra was exhausting, unpredictable, and often dangerous, but it was also exhilarating. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. With Lyra's teleportation abilities and human ingenuity, there was no limit to what they could achieve together. And for better or worse, every time she teleported, she would likely land right on top of him again. The next morning, the colony buzzed with activity. Humans and Lyrians moved through the corridors, preparing for the daily operations that kept Ardent Five running smoothly. Jace walked down the hallway, carrying his toolkit, with Lyra floating beside him, her small frame glowing softly in the early light. She had finally begun to understand some control over her teleportation, but unpredictability was still her signature. "You know," Lyra said, swinging gently in the air, "I think I'm getting better." Jace glanced at her, skeptical. "Better doesn't mean perfect." "Better is something," she said, smiling. Then, with a blink and a pop, she vanished and reappeared on top of his shoulder. Jace groaned. "Better in whose universe?" Lyra laughed. "Your universe, obviously." Jace shook his head but couldn't help smiling. Teaching her was both a challenge and an adventure. He had never worked with someone or something so unpredictable. Humans had technology, aliens had abilities, and together they could do incredible things. The teleportation trials resumed later that morning. This time, Jace decided to try a new approach. Instead of forcing Lyra to stay on the floor marker, he set up a series of targets throughout the chamber. Each target had a small sensor that could measure precision and energy output. The idea was simple. The more she focused on a specific point, the better she could control her teleportation. Okay, Lyra, Jace said, adjusting the sensors. First target is over there. He pointed to a bright circle near the far wall. Think about it clearly. Picture yourself landing on it exactly. Lyra nodded. I can do that. She concentrated, her eyes narrowing slightly. The air shimmered around her, faint streaks of light forming as if she were stretching space itself. And then she disappeared. The monitors flickered for a moment before showing her precise landing on the target. Jace exhaled, impressed. Finally, that's perfect. Lyra beamed. See, I told you I'm learning. But before they could celebrate, the colony's alarm system rang. Red lights flashed across the hallways. Jace's heart sank. Power fluctuations, a voice over the intercom announced. Outer sector energy conduit unstable. All personnel to safety protocols. Jace grabbed his tablet. The energy readings were spiking again, stronger than the last time. If the surge reached the main grid, it could disable life support in multiple sections of the colony. Lyra, this is serious, Jace said. We need your help. Lyra's eyes widened. I can try. But it might be risky. Focus, Jace said firmly. Remember what we practiced. Picture the conduit, picture yourself there, stabilize it. Lyra nodded and blinked out of existence. Jace watched the monitors nervously. Her glowing form appeared near the conduit, moving with a precision that surprised him. She placed her hands on the energy streams, her body shimmering as she absorbed the unstable power and redirected it safely. For a moment, everything was calm. Then a sudden pulse caused her to vanish again, only to reappear right on top of Jace, who had been checking the monitor. Oof, Lyra, not on top, he groaned, trying to push her off. Lyra laughed, floating lightly. I got a little carried away. Jace rubbed his shoulder, grimacing but also smiling. A little, that was catastrophic on the scale of gravity. Despite the mishap, the energy surge was contained. Lyra had managed to stabilize the conduit, proving that even her chaotic abilities could be a huge asset when used correctly. Jace couldn't help but feel proud. Later, in the control room, they reviewed the data. Lyra's teleportation had become more precise than anyone had expected. The colony's engineers were stunned by her natural ability, and Jace realized that the bond between human ingenuity and alien talent could be something extraordinary. See, Jace, Lyra said, floating above the console. I told you I could help. Yes, but you also told me I'd need a chiropractor, Jace replied with a grin. Their moment of humor was interrupted by another alert. A small group of unknown ships had been detected in orbit. The colony's scanners identified them as hostile raiders, mercenaries who sought to exploit the colony's resources. Jace's stomach tightened. Lyra, we might need your abilities more than ever. Lyra's eyes widened, but she nodded. I'll do my best. The humans and Lyrians scrambled to prepare defenses. Jace helped set up energy shields and automated turrets, while Lyra practiced teleporting between positions to learn how quickly she could react. Each time she appeared, she tested the sensors and showed Jace how her abilities could work for strategic advantage. During one of the drills, she teleported so close to Jace that she landed directly behind him. Oops, she said. Oops, Jace laughed, shaking his head. You're going to get me fired or worse, Lyra giggled, spinning lightly in the air. You'll thank me later when we stop the raiders. As evening fell, the raider ships approached. Jace and Lyra stood together in the observation bay, watching the fleet of hostile ships move closer. The colony's automated defenses engaged, but the raiders were clever and agile. Lyra's eyes glowed with determination. I can help, she said. I can teleport inside their ships, disrupt their systems. Jace hesitated. It's dangerous. You might get trapped or worse, caught in their weapons' fire. I trust you, she said simply. Focus is easier when I trust someone. Jace nodded slowly. Then we do this together. The raiders fired first, their energy beams cutting through the colony's shields. Lyra teleported into the middle of the fray, appearing on different ships in rapid succession. She disabled weapons, rerouted energy, and caused chaos among their ranks. Jace coordinated her actions from the control room, giving precise instructions while laughing at the moments she inevitably landed on him during feedback drills. "Lyra, not on me. You're supposed to be on the ship. I know. But you're my safety anchor," she called, her voice ringing with laughter. Despite the chaos, their teamwork was flawless. Lyra's teleportation, guided by Jace's human ingenuity, turned the tide. The raiders, confused and overwhelmed, retreated from the colony. The energy shield stabilized and the colony was safe. After the battle, Jace and Lyra stood on the observation deck, exhausted but elated. The violet sky of Ardent 5 glowed in the background, reflecting off the crystal mountains. "You were amazing," Jace said, smiling. "I can't believe how much you've improved." Lyra floated beside him, glowing faintly in the twilight. "I couldn't have done it without you." Jace felt a warm sense of pride. Lyra wasn't just a chaotic teleporter anymore, she was a hero, and their bond was stronger than ever. As they walked back to their quarters, Lyra blinked, disappearing for a moment, and then appeared right on top of Jace again. "Oof, seriously," he groaned, half laughing. Lyra laughed, floating beside him again. "Old habits die hard." Jace shook his head, smiling despite the minor pain. He realized something important. Human creativity, determination, and trust could turn even unpredictable chaos into strength. Together with Lyra, they were unstoppable. And he thought he secretly didn't mind that she always landed on him. Not entirely. The stars of Ardent 5 twinkled above them as the colony settled into a peaceful night. But Jace knew this was only the beginning. With Lyra's teleportation skills and human ingenuity working together, the colony had not only survived, it had grown stronger. And every time Lyra blinked back into existence, landing unpredictably on top of him or near him, it was a reminder of the unusual, yet extraordinary partnership they shared. The morning on Ardent 5 began like any other, with soft, violet sunlight streaming across the crystalline mountains. Jace was already in the teleportation chamber, checking systems, adjusting monitors, and making final preparations. Today was different. Today, Lyra would attempt something no Lyrian had ever done before: long-range teleportation across multiple sectors of the colony without misplacing herself. Lyra floated in front of him, her small body glowing faintly, her blue eyes bright with determination. "I'm ready," she said softly. "You've been ready for days," Jace said with a grin. "But let's see if you can do it without landing on me this time." Lyra tilted her head, a mischievous smile on her face. "I'll try, but no promises," he laughed. "Just try to keep me out of your landing path. That's all I ask." The chamber hummed as energy flowed through the teleportation conduits. Lyra focused, her small hands hovering in front of her as if she could touch the invisible threads of space. Then with a quiet pop she vanished. Jace watched the monitors, heart racing. The first sector showed a flash of blue light as Lyra landed perfectly on the designated marker. The second sector, another flash. Then the third, she appeared exactly where she needed to be, stabilizing a minor power surge in one of the colony's outer energy nodes. "Yes," Jace shouted, pumping his fist. "Perfect. That's amazing." Lyra blinked back into the chamber, hovering beside him. "I did it," she said, bouncing slightly in excitement. "I really did it." Jace couldn't stop smiling. The colony engineers gathered around, applauding. Lyra had just set a new record for precise, controlled teleportation. Her chaotic tendencies had been tamed, and in their place was a tool that could protect the colony in ways they had only dreamed of. But just as they were celebrating, the monitors beeped urgently. A new fleet of raiders had appeared, larger than before, approaching at high speed. They had obviously learned from their last failed attack and were determined to strike again. Jace's expression hardened. "Lyra, this is going to be more difficult. We'll need to use your abilities strategically." Lyra nodded, her expression serious now. "I can do it. I want to help." The colony activated its defenses. Energy shields rose across the walls, automated turrets hummed to life, and humans and Lyrians prepared for the incoming attack. Jace and Lyra stood together in the observation bay, scanning the approaching fleet. "Here's the plan," Jace said, pointing at the holographic map. "I'll direct you from here. You teleport between the ships, disable their weapons, and create confusion. Be careful, timing is critical." Lyra focused, her small body glowing brighter. "I understand." The raiders fired first, their energy beams striking the shields. Lyra blinked out, appearing on the bridge of the lead ship. With careful precision, she disrupted their navigation system, causing their ships to collide briefly. She teleported to the next ship, cutting off power to its weapons. Jace coordinated her movements, giving precise instructions while monitoring her energy levels. "Lyra, left side, quick, now to the rear deck." Lyra appeared exactly where Jace needed her, moving like a streak of light across the battlefield. Each teleportation was controlled, deliberate, and effective. The raiders struggled to respond, their formation breaking apart under her swift actions. During the chaos, Lyra miscalculated once and appeared directly on Jace, who was checking the monitors. "Oof, seriously, Lyra." "I'm sorry," she laughed, floating up and hovering beside him. "I got carried away." Jace rubbed his shoulder, grimacing but chuckling. "You really are impossible." Despite the minor mishap, her actions were turning the tide. The raiders were disoriented, unable to coordinate, and their attacks were largely ineffective. Jace's guidance combined with Lyra's abilities made them an unstoppable team. One of the raider ships attempted to bypass the defenses and target the colony's main energy core. Lyra's eyes widened. "I need to stop it." "Go," Jace shouted. "I'll guide you." In a blur of blue light, Lyra teleported aboard the ship. She disabled the weapons, redirected the energy flow, and even managed to jam the ship's engines. The raider vessel spun out of control and collided with a nearby asteroid, ending the threat. Jace watched in awe. Lyra's abilities, once unpredictable and chaotic, were now a precise tool capable of protecting the entire colony. As the last of the raiders retreated, the colony's automated defenses stabilized and the shields powered down. Humans and Lyrians cheered, celebrating their victory. Lyra blinked back into the chamber beside Jace, exhausted but smiling. You were incredible," Jace said, still catching his breath. Lyra floated down, her small hands on her hips. "We did it together. I couldn't have done it without you." Jace shook his head, smiling. "I just gave instructions. You did all the work. You were amazing." For a moment they stood in silence, looking out at the violet sky of Ardent 5. The crystalline mountains reflected the morning light, casting a soft glow over the colony. Jace felt a sense of pride, not just in Lyra, but in what humans and aliens could accomplish together. Creativity, courage, and trust had turned a chaotic ability into a powerful strength. Then, with a quiet pop, Lyra appeared right on top of Jace again. "Oof, Lyra," he groaned, falling backward slightly. "I'm sorry," she said, laughing as she floated beside him. "Old habits die hard." Jace shook his head, smiling despite the minor pain. "I don't think I'll ever get used to this." Lyra's laughter rang through the chamber, light and musical. "And I won't stop. You're my favorite landing spot." Jace rolled his eyes but couldn't stop laughing. "Favorite landing spot, really?" "Yes, you keep me safe," she said, her eyes glowing softly. Jace realized then that this little chaotic Lyrian had not only become a hero of the colony, but had also formed an unbreakable bond with him. Her unpredictability, her abilities, and her courage had changed the colony, and him, forever. Days passed, and the colony returned to its usual rhythm. Teleportation drills became routine, and Lyra's control improved with each session. She no longer accidentally landed on Jace most of the time, though occasionally, with a mischievous grin, she would appear right beside him, reminding him of how far they had come. The humans and Lyrians celebrated their victory with a small festival. Jace and Lyra stood together, watching the celebrations. Children laughed, playing with small holographic projections, and adults shared stories of bravery and teamwork. Jace felt a warm sense of accomplishment. He had helped guide Lyra, yes, but it was her courage, her determination, and her spirit that had saved the colony. "You know," Jace said, glancing at Lyra, "I think you've finally mastered your abilities." Lyra floated up slightly, eyes sparkling. "I have, thanks to you." He smiled. "Don't forget you still have a tendency to teleport on top of me." Lyra laughed, a bright musical sound that made Jace shake his head. "I won't forget, it's part of my charm." As the sun set over Ardent 5, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold, Jace realized something important. Humans and aliens working together could achieve the impossible. Creativity, courage, and trust were more powerful than any weapon. And sometimes, even the most chaotic abilities, when guided with care, could become the greatest strength. Lyra blinked once more, appearing beside him, her small hand brushing his. "Ready for tomorrow?" she asked. Jace smiled. "Always. But maybe try not to land on me first thing in the morning." Lyra giggled, hovering just above his shoulder. "No promises." And with that, Jace knew that life on Ardent 5 would never be dull. Chaos, laughter, and courage were part of their daily routine now. But together, human ingenuity and Lyrian talent would keep the colony safe, and they would face every challenge, no matter how impossible, side by side. And yes, Lyra would always find a way to land right on top of him, a reminder that even in a vast galaxy, bonds of trust, friendship, and teamwork could turn chaos into strength.